Discover the miraculous plan, 3 divine revelations on the sacred covenant between Jews and Arabs. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the word of the Lord came to Abram, a humble shepherd of Ur of the Chaldeans, a land revered for its vibrant culture yet steeped in polytheistic worship. Under the vast celestial expanse, the stars brimmed with mystery, a promise yet unfulfilled, threaded in the fabric of divine purpose. Abram, born of Terach, a man of many gods, sensed a stirring within him, as visions danced at the edges of his mind like ephemeral shadows. Something beckoned him, calling a presence he struggled to comprehend. One fateful night, God spoke, his voice cutting through the night's embrace. Abram, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. A quiver of excitement washed over him, mingled with the weight of obedience. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. These words infiltrated his heart, a promise of descendants like the stars above, yet doubt lingered, challenging his hopes. How could a man without a son become the father of nations? As morning light grazed the horizon, Abram faced an insurmountable choice. Should he abandon everything known and love to pursue the unfathomable? The winds whispered of disbelief, yet he felt an unyielding call, a God who operates beyond the confines of human limitation. With resolve forged in faith, he made the quiet decision, setting off with his wife, Sarai, into the unknown. The days unfurled, transforming barren landscape into a journey of faith. As they traversed arid plains toward Canaan, Abram erected altars, calling on the name of the Lord, deepening his relationship with the God who promised. The tension grew. He questioned if he would witness the fulfillment of such a monumental promise. Yet God's presence filled the silence, an anchor amid chaos. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful stories from Scripture. Hit the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed by how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Time marched forward, and Abram's spirit grew heavy with unanswered questions. In a sacred covenant sealed in a fiery vision, God commanded him to uphold the covenant of circumcision, a vivid mark of dedication and divine promise. He felt the pang of pain, yet with each slice, he clung to belief, wondering how obedience could easily morph into doubt. Desperation grew in Sarai, her dream of motherhood seemed elusive. Urged by circumstances, she introduced Hagar into their lives, hoping to fulfill divine plans through their means. Ishmael was born, a complex mess of human striving amidst God's promise, yet God spoke again, I will bless Ishmael, he, too, will be a great nation. Confusion reigned, 2 paths diverging, with duty and destiny colliding. As Abram stood at a precipice, a cacophony of uncertainty lingered in the air. The stars twinkled above, a reminder of God's lingering presence and unbroken promises. With every breath, he began to grasp that the unfolding divine plan encompassed more than just his heritage. Could it be that God envisioned a legacy that would bridge beyond him, linking hearts and nations in his wondrous tapestry of grace? The narrative of his life, the narrative of nations, was only beginning to dawn. As days turned into months, Abram wandered with Sarai and their household, seeking the practical fulfillment of God's promise. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he would gaze up at the multitude of stars, longing to understand the scope of the covenant renewed in his heart. The whispers of doubt clung to him like shadows, and in these moments, a deep yearning took root within his spirit. He pondered, where is the son who will carry forth the legacy promised? In a dream, God appeared again to Abram, enveloping him in a cloud of divine wonder. Fear not, Abram, for I am your shield, your very great reward. Yet, Abram's heart wrestled with the weight of unanswered longings. O sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless? The heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. The uncertainty echoed in his heart, revealing a profound human reality where faith intersects with despair, but the Lord did not falter. With tender assurance, he led Abram outside. Look up at the heavens and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. So shall your offspring be. A fire ignited within Abram's faith, and he believed the promises of God. His heart swelled with a renewed hope, and he felt the love of the Almighty shatter the chains of doubt, yet as years passed, the promise felt no nearer. Sarai remained barren, and feelings of inadequacy pressed hard upon her spirit. Surely, she said to Abram one evening, the Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my maidservant, perhaps I can build a family through her. With a heavy heart, Abram agreed, seeking to fulfill God's promise through the lens of human wisdom rather than divine sovereignty. Thus, Hagar became the vessel of Sarai's desperation. In the heat of their pursuit, Ishmael was born. Sarai's joy twisted, as her plans spiraled out of her grasp. Tension brewed among the women, and Hagar's eyes gleamed with triumph, a competition born of anguish. Sarai's heart was burdened with contempt and bitterness, flaring in the face of unrighteous outcomes molded by human initiative, and yet, in this turmoil, the Lord saw Hagar. An angel of God met her by a spring in the wilderness, prompting her to return and submit to Sarai. You are now with child and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. Thus, the name echoed through centuries, and Hagar found herself blessed by the promise of a future, intertwined with the unfolding narrative of divine destiny. As the days flowed like a river, God's sovereign will became more profound than Abram could fathom, transcending human understanding. In a furrowed brow under the vast expanse of sky, Abram pondered the weight of impending revelation. Will this truly be the path to my promised legacy, or have I faltered? With reverence, he called upon the Lord, entering into sacred dialogue, prepared for whatever the Almighty would impart next. As he stood upon the threshold of uncertainty, the heavens whispered a deeper truth. Could God's plan encompass more than Abram and Sarai's understanding? A stirring rose within him, for he began to sense that hidden within the threads of lineage, the story of promise stretches beyond the boundaries of flesh, a collective hope written divine across time. What lay ahead remained enshrouded in mystery, yet the dawning of God's greatness loomed ever closer, waiting to unfold his sovereign design. But the days continued to shift like grains of sand, each moment pregnant with purpose. Abram's heart beat heavily, not just for himself, but for the destiny intertwined with stars and promises. As he walked through the land of Canaan, the dust of the earth stained his sandals, and with each step, he bore the burden of dreams yet to be birthed. The echoes of the divine promise resounded within him, stark against the silence of the unanswered prayers. One day, as the sun warmed the landscape, the Lord spoke once more to Abram, saying, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. Abram's heart quickened, for the magnitude of the promise was awakening within him, a land to be inherited by generations. The vision was grand, each detail draping over him like the finest of garments. Lord God, Abram pleaded, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? A silence hovered in the air, laden with anticipation. The Lord responded with a command, bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Obediently, Abram gathered the animals, feeling their life pulse with hope for the future, a tangible representation of a covenant yet to unfold. As the sun began to set, Abram cut the animals in two and arranged them opposite each other. A deep slumber descended upon him, and darkness fell, yet it was in that darkness that visions of dread washed over him. The Lord broke through the mist of fear, saying, know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own. Prophetic words spilling forth from the lips of God. Awake from the dream, fear gripped Abram's heart, yet a holy comfort nestled within. God continued, but I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. The glimmers of hope held fast amidst impending trials. As for you, you will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. With reverence, Abram listened. These words wove a tapestry of both promise and foreboding, intertwining sufferings that would birth a great nation. And when the sun had set and darkness enveloped the land, God manifested himself like a blazing fire that passed between the pieces of the sacrificed animals. A covenant, eternal and binding, was forged in that sacred moment. The promise of the land was echoed resoundingly through the night air, sealing the destiny of Abram's descendants. On that day, the Lord proclaimed, "I gave Abram the land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." With the heavens as witness, the tapestry of divine plans unfurled, each thread weaving together generations yet unborn. Abram stood contemplating the wonder of it all, the reality and mystery entwined like vines around his heart, pressing him to understand. God's designs were vast and interwoven with the destinies of many nations. As he gazed into the evening sky, he felt the weight of a divine revelation settle upon him. From darkness into dawn, the implications of God's sovereign plan drew closer. Little did he know that the journey would stretch beyond himself, entwining the fates of both Jews and Arabs, setting a course that would echo through the ages. What lay before him was a sacred promise, yet the fullness of God's intention whispered tantalizingly on the edges of his understanding, a mystery just beginning to unfold. And it came to pass, after these things, that the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward." Abram, still wrestling with the weight of the promises and the shadows of uncertainty, answered, "Lord God, what will you give me, seeing I go childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus?" His heart ached for a son, for the promise of descendants felt like a distant echo amidst the vast silence of the night. The Lord responded, "This one shall not be your heir, but one who will come from your own body shall be your heir." As the assurance filled Abram's spirit, God took him outside and bid him look toward the heavens. "Count the stars, if you are able to number them. So shall your descendants be." In that moment, a flicker of faith ignited within him, and he believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. The bond of faith was forged, a light illuminating the path of God's covenant, renewing the promises spoken in darkness. God! Abram exclaimed, "How shall I know that I will inherit it?" The Lord then instructed him, "Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon." As he gathered the animals, each movement carried the weight of significance. Upon arranging the sacrifices, he felt the palpable presence of God surrounding him, divine assurance amidst the overshadowing fear. Then the darkness fell once again, deeper this time, and a horror of great darkness loomed over him. Yet within that dread, God's voice once again broke through, declaring, "Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, serving them with oppression for 400 years. A tear streamed down Abram's cheek as the foreboding truth took shape. Yet in the depth of sorrow, hope intertwined with dread as the Lord added, "But afterwards, they shall come out with great possessions." After the profound revelation, God reaffirmed his promise, "To your descendants, I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." With each proclamation, the covenant grew, imbued with the sacred binding of faith, sacrifice, and divine will. In that sacred place, as the sun was setting, a smoking oven and a burning torch passed between the pieces of the sacrifices. The presence of God, shrouded in mystery and reverence, enveloped Abram as a powerful vow reverberated through the darkened air. Days turned into months, and seasons rolled into years, unyielding and relentless. Yet the promise lingered like a fragrant memory, the fulfillment of God's words hanging upon the horizon. As Abram turned to look toward the land, he embraced the uncertainties with a heart full of hope. Yet within him still echoed the question, how could such a grand promise unfold through hardship? The mysteries of God's sovereign plan loomed ahead, more complex than he had dared to fathom. And as he pondered, a truth permeated his spirit: the fulfillment of God's promise would intertwine not just his lineage, but would also embrace nations, altering the course of history itself. What lay concealed within the folds of divine providence? Surely, the journey was only beginning, and the hand of God was moving, preparing to unveil extraordinary wonders through the lives entwined in covenant, a revelation that would echo through generations, leading to the redemption story only he could orchestrate. And it came to pass that after the darkness had lifted, Abram arose in the early morning, his heart steadfast yet heavy with the burden of God's words. Daylight graced the land, illuminating the vast expanse, yet uncertainty danced upon the periphery of his mind. "What shall I do next, O Lord?" he murmured, seeking direction as the sun rose over the horizon. the Lord's voice then came to Abram again, walk before me, and be blameless. A command, yet also a reassurance. It was as if the Lord was calling him to faithful action. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly, he declared. This promise ignited a fierce longing within Abram's soul, propelling him forward. Thus, Abram fell on his face before God in profound reverence. O Lord, how shall I walk in your ways? Grant me strength to fulfill this pledge. And the Lord responded, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. As he spoke, a shift occurred, a transformation was needed within Abram, for God continued, No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. Abram marveled at this divine revelation. To carry a new name would signify a new destiny woven by divine promise. But, Lord, how shall this be? Is it not beyond the grasp of a man of my years? The Lord replied, I have chosen this covenant for you not only as a promise but as a mark of hope for generations to come. And you shall have a son, his name shall be Isaac, and through him will I establish my everlasting covenant. As each word settled in Abram's soul, he wrestled with both awe and disbelief. Will it truly be as you say? He asked, overwhelmed by the weight of such prophetic clarity. God, undeterred, continued, Your descendants shall be like the stars, innumerable, and they will possess the land I swore to give to you and your offspring. A promise that echoed beyond earthly comprehension, forging a legacy steeped in faith, yet, in a moment of raw humanity, Abram once again felt the pang of sorrow. Can a child be born to one who is 100 years old? Or can Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? At this, the Lord's face shone with compassion. Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Abram fell silent, contemplating the magnitude of the promise, a testament to God's unfathomable power and faithfulness. With each unfolding revelation, the tension of the unknown drew tighter, yet a dim light of hope flickered in the depths of his spirit. As the days unfolded into years, Abram nurtured a heart ever more attuned to the divine, and the vision of his descendants became a beacon. But the question remained woven through the fabric of his days, how could such a grand lineage arise from one who had faced such barrenness? Little did he know, the whisper of God's promise was already in motion, a tapestry of faith interlaced with trials, leading not just to a singular fulfillment but a providential history that would echo through the ages. For God's sovereign designs often reveal themselves in the most unlikely circumstances, as he prepared to unleash a greater narrative in the unfolding of his unyielding covenant. What treasures awaited to be unveiled through the trials of faith? A divine orchestration lay just ahead, stirring the hearts toward an everlasting promise that would transcend nations and reverberate throughout time. And it came to pass after the Lord had spoken to Abraham that he rose with a heart burning with faith. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into years, yet the promise lingered upon the horizon, enticing yet elusive. Abraham walked with his God, his days filled with quiet solitude and deep communion, but the promise of a son remained like a distant star. In the fullness of time, God visited Abraham once more. The air was thick with anticipation as Abraham lifted his eyes, and behold, he saw 3 men standing before him. At once, he ran to meet them and bowed to the ground, saying, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. They replied, Where is Sarah your wife? Abraham answered, Here, in the tent. Then the Lord said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life, and behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son. Abraham's heart danced within him, but doubt crept silently into the corners of his mind. As he wandered in the vastness of his thoughts, he glanced toward Sarah, who was listening at the door of the tent, and he saw her frame tremble at the sound of such a declaration. Now Sarah was far past the age of childbearing, and she laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? The Lord spoke to Abraham, saying, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I surely bear a child since I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Caught in the moment, Sarah came forth, denying her laughter. "I did not laugh," she said, for she was afraid, but he said, "No, but you did laugh." Ah, the depth of the human heart, reflected in laughter and sorrow, a tapestry woven with threads of faith and doubt. Even in her laughter, there was a flicker of hope, and within hope lay the seed of a miracle yet to come, and so the men rose from there, looking toward Sodom, and Abraham accompanied them to send them away. In his heart, a holy fear stirred, for he perceived their purpose was not only to proclaim the birth of Isaac but to execute judgment upon the wickedness of Sodom. Then Abraham approached and said, "Would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city, would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it?" The Lord answered, "If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes." Thus, a bold intercession arose from Abraham's lips, pleading for the mercy of God, extending from 50 to 45, then 40, 30, 20, until he said, "Let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak but once more, suppose 10 should be found there." The Lord replied, "I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. In the depths of Abraham's spirit, the clash of justice and mercy resonated. He understood the weight of the covenant that rested upon his sons yet to come, a covenant that unwrapped the divine purpose through generations. As Abraham returned home, the heir charged with the promise of life, a question lingered in his heart: how would the Almighty unfold his promises amidst the frailty of humanity? For through laughter and tears, through forsaking and faithfulness, the great tapestry of God's covenant was steadily woven, and in those moments, the essence of God's plan began to shimmer brighter: redemption through the miraculous, hope amid despair. What further glories awaited in the fulfillment of his divine purpose? The unfolding story was just beginning, setting the stage for a greater revelation, a divine legacy that would not merely alter one life but impact nations forevermore. And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. Deep within him, a tumult of emotions surged, the desire for mercy trembling against the stark holiness of divine judgment. "O Lord," Abraham interceded once more, "far be it from you to slay the righteous with the wicked. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right?" The Lord's gaze rested upon him, a mixture of sorrow and steadfastness reflecting the balance of justice and love. "If I find in Sodom the 10 righteous you seek, I will not destroy it," he said, and with that final word, the men departed, journeying toward the city of Sin. As the shadow of dusk draped over the land, Abraham returned to his tent, burdened with the weight of the approaching judgment. His heart wrestled against the dread of what was to come, knowing that his nephew Lot dwelt within those perilous walls. The anguish of his spirit pressed him upon his knees, lifting hands toward heaven in fervent supplication for Lot and his household. The sky darkened, and the wind seemed to carry whispers of calamity, stirring the air with unspoken fear. The evening hours slid away, and Abraham's mind lingered on the quiet echoes of God's promise: a son was to be given to him and Sarah. Yet, what would come of them, should calamity fall upon his kin? Meanwhile, in Sodom, the men who had visited Abraham arrived in the city, appearing as strangers. Lot had sat in the gate of Sodom and, upon seeing them, rose up and bowed himself with his face toward the ground. "Behold now, my lords," he implored, "turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways." But they said, "Nay, but we will abide in the street all night." And Lot, perceiving the danger that lurked in the city, pressed them greatly until they turned in unto him, and he made them a feast and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. Yet, before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round about, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. They called unto Lot and said, "Where are the men which came in to thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them." In that moment, Lot's heart sank, and a great burden fell upon him as he realized the wickedness that surrounded him. "I pray you, brethren," he implored, "do not so wickedly. Behold now, I have 2 daughters which have not known man, let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and ye to them as is good in your eyes, only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof." But the men of Sodom pressed hard against the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. The angels of the Lord in the form of guests reached forth their hands, and pulled Lot into the house, shutting the door upon the wickedness of the world outside, and the men of Sodom were struck with blindness, causing confusion to fall upon them. In their blinded fury, they stumbled, seeking the door, but the angels of the Lord stood firm beside Lot, declaring the purpose of God in that hour. The cry of the city has come before the Lord, they said, and the time of judgment is at hand. Thus, in the midst of impending destruction, the threads of God's covenant continued to weave a tale of divine mercy and purpose. For the promise of Isaac was not merely a gift, it bore the weight of a nation's hope, intertwined with the fate of all humanity. As Lot fled with the angels towards safety, the dawn of deliverance lingered on the horizon, hinting at the greater plan of redemption nestled beneath the weight of every breath taken in faith. Yet deeper questions began to surface. How would this act of deliverance from Sodom intertwine with the promise made to Abraham? The unfolding of God's covenant was far from over, it beckoned a new chapter, where grace and judgment would coexist in a struggle much grander than they could perceive. What divine mystery lay hidden in the folds of destiny as the dawn approached? The legacy of Abraham and the heart of God were poised upon the crescendo of history, awaiting the revelation of his sovereign will. And the angels of the Lord, having led Lot safely within and shut the door, turned to him with stern countenance. Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city, they commanded, their voices resonating with authority, yet touched with urgency. But Lot, though warned, hesitated, his heart bound by the tender ties of earthly affection and the comforts of a life long lived in Sodom. The angels, seeing his distress, took hold of his hand, and the hand of his wife and the hands of his 2 daughters, and brought them forth and set them without the city. Oh, how swiftly they moved, as if in heat of a greater peril unseen. Escape for thy life, they urged. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain, escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. The command echoed through the air, stirring a tumult of fear and divine insistence, yet, Lot replied, Oh, not so, my lord. Behold now, thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy which thou hast shown unto me in saving my life, and I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. He spoke with earnestness, pleading for a gentler refuge. Behold now, the angel answered, This city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither, is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. They consented, giving Lot a way of escape, instructing him to flee to Zoar. Thus, Lot entered into Zoar, where the brightness of the dawn revealed a sliver of hope against the backdrop of the gathering storm. But the eyes of heaven, full of judgment, were about to unveil their intent. As the rising sun illuminated the dawn, the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But Lot's wife, looking back from behind him, became a pillar of salt, forever marked in the annals of sorrow and a testament to the perils of gazing upon what was lost. Abram, afar off, beheld the smoke of the country rising as the smoke of a furnace, and a grief enveloped him, for he had bared his heart before the Lord for the righteous, and now he mourned for his kin. Yet through this grief, a profound revelation dawned upon him. God's mercy is vast, yet his judgment is sure. In the safety of Zoar, Lot and his daughters found refuge, but the shadows of sin loomed thick in their hearts. A bitter legacy stirred within, leading to decisions that would echo through generations. Truly, the Lord murmured to the heart of Abraham, Though judgment may fall, my covenant will not falter. The promise remains unbroken. Meanwhile, heaven recounted the hearts of men, revealing that the legacy of Abraham would indeed unfold like fragrant blossoms in the desert. From his lineage, nations would emerge. How God as sovereign will weaves through such trials and triumphs, like a masterful tapestry. The time of reckoning had come, yet in his merciful design, the stream of salvation was already flowing forth, waiting to envelop those willing to believe and follow. Watch and see, the Lord proclaimed softly to Abraham, as I begin to unveil the depths of my plan and the grace that shall be extended not only to Israel but unto the nations birthed from faith. For the blessings and the curses were poised, hanging in the balance, awaiting the hearts of men to choose, each soul echoing the call of their Maker, "Come to me, and I will show you the paths of righteousness, leading unto eternal life." Thus began the unfolding of greater mysteries. What glorious works of faith and grace awaited at the horizon, where God's promise would reveal itself anew. And it came to pass, as Lot dwelt in Zoar, that his heart was heavy with the weight of loss and regret. For though he had escaped the wrath of the Lord, the remnants of Sodom clung to him like a shadow, whispering of an ancient way of life that led to ruin. The air was thick with the memories of his wife, who now stood a silent witness to the folly of neglecting divine warning. Amidst this sorrow, Lot turned to his daughters, saying, "The land is desolate, and the world has turned against us. We must not perish in isolation, for the future lies in our hands." But his daughters, burdened by grief and confusion, had little hope left. Their laughter, once plentiful among the streets of Sodom, now echoed only in the recesses of memory. "Father," one daughter spoke, her voice trembling, "what shall become of us? The men of Zoar are not like our people. We are now alone, and our father's house is stripped of its former glory." Yet in her words, there remained a flicker of resolve, a desire to preserve their lineage amidst the destruction. Then the elder daughter, overtaken by an urge to safeguard their family line, devised a scheme. "Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed from our father." Though shame filled their hearts, the fear of extinction drove them to this act, an echo of the desperation that gripped their souls. Thus they conspired under the cover of night, their hearts conflicted yet determined. Once Lot was made drunk with wine, they came into him, and he knew not when they lay down or when they arose. In this tragic fulfillment of their plan, the daughters carried the seed of a new beginning amidst the ashes of destruction. As the dawn broke, a revelation swept over the land, a connection forged not from earthly designs, but from divine intervention. From these unions, two nations would arise, the Moabites and the Ammonites, destined to play their part in the unfolding tapestry of God's plan. Though born from a place of despair, they would ultimately carry the names of their fathers through trials of their own, showcasing the complexity of God's wisdom. Meanwhile, the Lord turned his gaze toward Abram, whose faith continued strong amidst the rising smoke of Sodom's fall. "Abraham," he called, "your heart remains faithful, and I shall reveal to you the generations that are to flow from you like rivers of living water." With every word that fell from heaven, a promise echoed through time. Though nations may rise and fall, the covenant of Abraham would endure, touching the hearts of Jews and Arabs alike in a circle of divine purpose. "Lo," the Lord continued, "even from the ashes of judgment will arise a greater story of redemption that shall bind the nations together, a promise made through Isaac and yet to be unveiled through Ishmael. My sovereign hand shall guide the descendants, for they are all children of the promise." Thus, as the desert sun cast long shadows over the land, a divine mystery awaited to unfold, a promise interwoven in the hearts of men, revealing that God's plan would not be contained. For in every choice made beneath the heavens, he orchestrated the dance of life, leading toward a grand finale, when all nations would gather to see his glory revealed. "Seek and you shall find," echoed the voice of the Lord, "for what is hidden now shall be made known in my perfect time." The path to reconciliation awaits, woven in faith, and marked by grace. And it came to pass that after the tumultuous events surrounding Sodom, Abraham lifted his eyes toward the heavens, pondering the path laid before him. Each dawn brought reassurance, yet the burden of unanswered questions settled heavily upon his heart. The land before him, once barren and void, now swelled with whispers of promise, the promise of his lineage, a covenant stretching across generations. One evening, as shadows danced along the rolling hills of Canaan, the Lord spoke again to Abraham, saying, "Abraham, I have remembered my covenant with you and with your descendants after you." The words resonated in his spirit like a symphony of hope and renewal, echoing authoritative grace that filled the expanse of his soul. "Your faithfulness in the midst of trials shall not go unnoticed. A son, Isaac, is to be born, and through him shall my promises take shape. Rejoice, for I have declared your descendants shall become mighty nations." The heavens glimmered with stars that bit by bit began to unfold the mysteries of divine intent. The promise was both immediate and eternal. "Yet know this," the Lord continued, "the lineage that shall emerge from Isaac shall not stand in isolation. It shall give birth to nations, and further, from Ishmael shall arise kingdoms. For I have blessed him also, he too will be a great nation. Abraham listened, and within the depths of his heart, understanding bloomed. God's plans were lavish and encompassed far more than he had imagined. Is it not a wonder? The Lord's voice caressed the very fabric of night. I will weave together the destinies of those who walk by faith, regardless of earthly bounds. The ties of your covenant shall touch the hearts of descendants far and wide, establishing paths of peace and understanding as the tumult of fear and rejection gives way to my grace. With a heart full yet heavy, Abraham beheld the landscape that cradled both promise and conundrum. Questions surged forth like the tide, fierce and yearning. Lord, he ventured, how then shall we be a light to the nations born from the ashes of conflict? The weight of his inquiry hung between them, challenged by a world conditioned toward division, and the Lord answered with assurance, through reconciliation, my covenant shall reach wide and deep. The paths of Abraham and of Ishmael are intertwined, destined to uncover the truth that unity lies in the enduring legacy of faith. From the households of both, I will teach the world of my mercy and justice. The dusk wrapped around them like a living tapestry, and Abraham, embraced by divine presence, found solace in the divine intentions that work beneath the surface of misunderstanding and strife. Look at the night sky, the Lord encouraged, and remember, each star bears witness to the multitude of your descendants, each one as precious to me as the first. Together, they will shine a light to guide those who wander in darkness. As the stars twinkled above, Abraham's heart swelled with renewed faith, yet within him, a deeper longing stirred. How could he pave the way for such harmony? How would his children, both through Isaac and Ishmael, find grace towards one another? The Lord seemed to read yet another question unspoken. In the days to come, he revealed, I will stir their hearts toward a collective yearning, a recognition that though distinct, they share a connection of faith that traverses beyond this lifetime. Ah, the mystery deepened. Abraham felt the weight of what was to come, the trials, the triumphs, even the unfolding conflict that would shadow both lineages. But amidst it all, he sensed hope, a hope that God's promise encompassed the breadth of humanity, all destined to seek him. I will raise prophets and leaders from among them, God continued, as the air thickened with expectation. They will carry forth the message of reconciliation, weaving the golden thread of my covenant through the heart of both nations. Abraham bowed low, awestruck by the depths of divine revelation. The landscape of his heart, intermingled with dreams of descendants, began to broaden understanding. That the tapestry of his life would unify threads across time and space, that in that moment of revelation, the ground beneath him felt alive. Redemption, healing, and hope awaited at every turn. The sovereign plan of God unfurled, revealing that both Jews and Arabs were destined to journey together towards the light of a shared promise. As he stood in the shadows of twilight, the dawn of understanding broke upon him. A divine mystery lay ahead, weaving a narrative that would transcend time and transform the hearts of nations. What would the unfolding of this extraordinary legacy reveal as God's sovereign hand continued to guide? The question lingered, drawing Abraham into the anticipation of a story yet to be told, one that promised a future marked by grace, understanding, and togetherness woven into the very fabric of God's covenant, a promise destined to echo through the ages, inviting many into the fold of his everlasting love.